After tumblers have been unloaded from the delivery truck, visually inspect crate, carton, and parts for damage, and then remove crating. Unscrew the 4 shipping bolts from the skid. Do not throw the bolts away. These are the leveling legs and will be used later in the installation. Use a forklift or skid steer to move the tumblers into place. Remove the tumbler from the skid. Avoid putting pressure on the lower blower housing or motor assembly. To reduce risk of serious injury, install lockable doors to prevent public access to rear of tumblers. To reduce the risk of serious injury, clearance of tumbler cabinet from combustible construction must conform to the minimum clearances. Refer to the installation manual for proper clearances above, behind, and on either side of the machine. Make sure floor is bare and free of all flooring material. Make sure floor is level and there are sufficient clearances around the machine. Install near an outside wall so duct length can be kept to a minimum and makeup air can be easily accessed. Get the leveling bolts that were removed from the skid and remove the 4 nuts from the literature bag. Screw 1 nut fully onto each of the 4 leveling legs. Screw the 4 leveling legs into the level adjusting fittings in the bottom of the tumbler. Slide tumbler into its permanent location. Install the leveling legs into all tumblers and slide into their permanent location. After all tumblers are slid into position, make final spacing and leveling adjustments. Adjust leveling legs until unit is level, with the front legs 1/8 of an inch higher than the rear. Lock the leveling legs with the nuts. The stacked dryer tumbler has a 5th leveling leg on the blower housing. It's very important to properly adjust this leg. The unit is back heavy and could rock or tip. The stacked tumbler has a 5th leveling leg, which is shipped in the up position. The 5th leveling leg must be installed properly on the lower left side of the blower housing to stabilize the tumbler. After leveling the 4 cabinet leveling legs, lower the 5th leveling leg so it contacts the floor and then secure the screws. Improperly sized or assembled ductwork causes excess back pressure, which results in slow drying, lint collecting in the duct, lint blowing back into the room, and increased fire hazard. For maximum efficiency and minimum lint accumulation, tumbler air must be exhausted to the outdoors by the shortest route possible. Proper sized exhaust ducts are essential for proper operation. All elbows should be sweep type. Exhaust ducts must be assembled so the interior surfaces are smooth. Rigid metal ducts are recommended. Use exhaust ducts made of sheet metal or other non-combustible material. Do not use sheet metal screws or fasteners on exhaust pipe joints, which extend into the duct and catch lint. Use duct tape or pop rivets on all seams and joints. Verify that old ducts are thoroughly cleaned out before installing new tumblers. A drying tumbler produces combustible lint. To reduce the risk of fire, the tumbler must be exhausted to the outdoors. To reduce the risk of fire and accumulation of combustible gases, do not exhaust tumbler air into a window well, gas vent, chimney, or in an enclosed, unventilated area such as an attic wall, ceiling, crawl space under a building, or concealed space of a building. A tumbler is forced air exhausted and requires provisions for makeup air to replace air exhausted by the tumbler. Makeup air openings should be as close to the tumbler as possible and sized adequately. Each tumbler requires its own makeup air opening. Makeup air openings with louvers will restrict airflow. The openings must be increased to compensate for area taken up by the louvers. Refer to the installation manual for specific makeup air opening specs. To reduce the risk of fire or explosion, do not connect the gas line to the tumbler if the gas service is not the same as that specified on the tumbler serial plate. It will first be necessary to convert the gas burner orifice and gas valve. Appropriate conversion kits are available. To reduce the risk of fire or explosion, if the tumbler is to be connected to liquefied petroleum LP gas, a vent to the outdoors must be provided in the room where the tumbler is installed. Obtain specific gas service pipe size from the gas supplier. Refer to installation manual for general pipe size. Sediment traps, shutoff valves, and supply pressure taps must be furnished and installed by the customer for the gas service line to each tumbler. It is important that equal pressure be maintained at all tumbler gas connections. This can best be done by installing a 1-inch pipe gas loop. Turn on gas and check all pipe connections for gas leaks with a non-corrosive leak detection fluid. Purge air in the gas service line by operating the tumblers in the drying mode. If burner does not light and unit goes into lockout, open and close door and restart. Repeat these steps until burner ignites. Check all pipe connections, internal and external, for gas leaks using a non-corrosive leak detection fluid. To reduce the risk of explosion or fire, do not use an open flame to check for gas leaks. Gas connections should be checked twice a year for leakage. To reduce the risk of electric shock, fire, explosion, serious injury, or death, disconnect electric power to the tumbler before servicing. Close gas shutoff valve to gas tumblers before servicing. Close steam valve to steam tumbler before servicing. Never start the tumbler with any guards, panels removed. Whenever ground wires are removed during servicing, these ground wires must be reconnected to ensure the tumbler is properly grounded. To reduce the risk of fire and electric shock, check with a qualified serviceman for proper grounding procedures. Improper connection of the equipment grounding conductor may result in a risk of electric shock. To reduce the risk of fire and electric shock, if electrical supply is coming from a 3-phase service, do not connect a high leg or stinger leg to a single-phase machine. On a 3-phase machine, if there is a high leg or stinger leg, it should be connected to L3. The tumbler must be grounded. For existing service, determine your service voltage and conductor amperage. Carefully review the tumbler serial plate rating and electrical requirement section of the installation manual. If service is inadequate, a qualified electrical contractor must upgrade it. Never connect an improper or inadequate service to any machine. All gas and steam tumblers require a single service connection to TB1 of the upper unit junction box only. The serial plate reflects current draw, breaker, fuse size, and conductor amperage required for the entire machine. All electric tumblers require separate service connections for each upper and lower unit. Serial plate ratings reflect current draw, breaker, fuse size, and conductor amperage required per unit. For more information on electrical connections, refer to the installation manual or contact a qualified electrician. All system components must have a 125 PSIG 8.6 bar working pressure. Shutoff valves must be installed upstream of the steam solenoid valve and downstream of each steam trap so components can be isolated for maintenance or emergency purposes. All components, solenoid valve, traps, must be supported to minimize loads on the tumbler steam coil connections. The flexible steam hoses connecting the coil outlet connections and steam traps must have a minimum of 125 psig, pounds per square inch gauge, 8.79 kilograms per square centimeter working pressure. A shutoff valve must be installed downstream from each steam trap so the condensate return line can be isolated in the event a steam trap requires maintenance. Each steam trap must be supported so minimum load is exerted on the coil outlet connection. Obtain specific steam service pipe sizes from the steam system supplier or a qualified steam fitter. Consult the installation manual for piping recommendations and instructions on installing steam traps and making condensate return connections. Remove or open all panels and check accessible bolts, nuts, screws, terminals, and fittings for tightness. Replace all panels and guards. Remove and discard the wire tie from the airflow switch so it can swing freely. Do not operate tumbler if airflow switch is faulty. An explosive gas mixture could collect in tumbler if airflow switch does not operate properly. Turn on the electrical supply to tumbler. Open the supply valve for gas or steam heated tumblers. After doing previous checks, press the start button. Open loading door. Cylinder should stop rotating within 7 seconds after door is opened, a maximum of 2 inches. If it does not, adjust the loading door switch. Gas tumblers. Start tumbler and check burner flame. Adjust air inlet shutter as required. Load cylinder with a full load of clean rags and run to remove oil or dirt from cylinder. Wipe out cylinder using an all-purpose cleaner or detergent and water solution.